it's Katerina Marie, and today I'm going to be talking about my brow lift, lip lift, and fat grafting surgeries that I did in Korea last year. So I went to Hyundai Aesthetics, which is in Seoul, and my doctor was Dr. Kim Yo-han. So I wanted to do all three surgeries at once. There was a lot of clinics that either didn't really have good reviews or they could only do one surgery or the other, but I wanted to find someone who could do them all at the same time just to make my recovery and trip a little easier. So I ended up being in Korea for about 3 weeks. When I first arrived, they have you take a COVID test right when you get out of the airport, and assuming it's COVID negative and everything, you're free to go. And I ended up staying at this little hotel with my friend. Our first couple of days in Korea, we actually just ran around the city and explored. I did a couple different photo shoots in studios there, and we went shopping. Korea has a lot of really fun things to do, so I wanted to do as much as I could before I had my surgery, because afterwards, I was in too much pain to really want to do a whole lot. So before I even had my flight, because I just had kind of a limited time in Korea, so I wanted to make sure everything was possible to do in that time frame. I remember when I first got to the clinic to do my initial consultation and meet the doctor, I had a whole huge list of questions about the surgeries on my phone. I highly recommend doing that if you ever go anywhere for surgery, just so you don't forget anything and you can get all your questions answered, because every doctor might have different techniques than another doctor, and you want to make sure you are very, very clear with the result you want and what you don't want. And I had a whole list of things and photos of what I liked and what I didn't like, so it was as clear as possible. And then the day after was my surgery, so I went in, and my surgery was actually really late. It started at 5 p.m. And so I met with the doctor and explained again what exactly I wanted. So with my eyebrows especially, I'm really picky with their shape, and they naturally are really arched. I pluck them and fill them in to try and make them straight, because I think it suits my face shape a little better. And he actually had initially assumed that I wanted them to be more arched, so he's like, oh, okay, for the brow lift, we're going to put endoteens here and make them really arched. And I was like, no, that's not what I want. So I'm really, really glad I could clarify that beforehand. So I explained to him that I wanted them to just be higher up on the ends and in the center, just to retain the straight shape, but just higher. So I ended up getting 1 endoteen here in the center, and then 1 on each side, so 3 in total. Some people get 4 or 5. Maybe if they have really low eyebrows, they need more, I'm not too sure, but I ended up with 3. So the reason I really wanted a brow lift is because before, naturally, if I totally relaxed all the muscles in my face, my eyebrows would be kind of low like this. It would kind of give me this weird, concerned look. I'm not sure if anyone else has that problem, but I had that problem my whole life. I would always tweeze under my eyebrows and fill them in on the top just so they looked higher, because they just kind of looked strange. I really didn't like their location or the shape naturally, so yeah, they would be kind of lower. Obviously they don't go as low now as they used to because of the brow lift, but they still do go low if I totally relax my face. But when I'm alert, they're like this, and I love the height, I love the placement, how everything came out. So I remember telling the doctor beforehand, that's how I wanted my eyebrows. I even had edited a photo of myself to show him exactly how I wanted them. And then for my lip, I never really had much of a long fill trim, so he actually recommended me to only take off 3 millimeters, which is very, very much on the low end for a lip lift, so it was a very, very subtle result. And what I really liked about the doctor was that he did the incision where it kind of follows your nostril. It goes up and then follows the hanging part, the columella, so the scar is really not that visible. I don't put any concealer on it when it's really it's hardly noticeable. It was red for maybe a few months, but it's really well hidden in my nose, which is great, because I've seen other YouTubers and other people get this surgery and their scar ended up being straight across, not following their nostrils, and it's really visible. It's not good. I'm so glad that mine didn't end up like that, because that was one of my biggest fears. Another thing that can happen with lip lifts too is your nose can end up getting wider, and luckily mine didn't, but I know that is a risk from some of my research, so I remember asking the doctor, like, my nose won't get whiter, right? Like, that's the last thing I want. And then I also had fat grafting done to my under eyes and my nasolabial folds. The fat was taken from the back of my thigh. So throughout my surgery and consultations, my translator was Esther and my consultant was Bella Seo, and they were both super nice, super fashionable ladies. Everyone in the clinic looked so nice. So they kind of walked me through everything and held my hand. I'm terrified of needles, and I had IV sedation for my surgery, so needles are a necessary evil, unfortunately. But I didn't actually need general anesthesia for the surgery, I guess because they're more minor. So I didn't have to take any blood tests or anything. It was easy. So the day of my surgery was at 5, and then I probably didn't actually get out of the clinic until close to like 11 p.m. It was really late because the surgery probably took about 3 hours, if I remember correctly, and then you're just laying in the recovery room for like a while just to wake up because you feel really groggy when you wake up. And then Esther helped me call a taxi home, and I was on my way. I was crazy bandaged up. I actually don't have any photos from that first night because I was just so out of it, and like the bandaging was insane. So because of the brow lift, my whole forehead was just covered in bandages. Like it was literally like this entire top half of my head was just wrapped. Then I had like a little bandage where my lip lift was done, but that was it. Okay, let's talk about the recovery. So the lip lift was easy breezy. I only had 3 millimeters removed. Maybe if you have more, it might be a bit tougher. The only really issue I noticed was that it just was harder to use straws and to close my mouth properly and like talk properly for a little while, but it wasn't ever really that bad. There was pretty much no pain, very little swelling. My nose did swell a bit, but that was really it. I remember being really scared that when my nose was swollen, I'm like, is it gonna be stuck like this? Because I wasn't expecting my nose to swell because it like didn't have anything really to do with the other surgeries, but it did. But it went away, luckily. So the recovery for that was just really super easy. I would say for the first 6 months after the surgery though, I really did have trouble like just making a seal on my mouth properly. It wasn't ever like that bad, like I could drink water or whatever, but occasionally like someone like drool out a little bit. So definitely expect that if you plan to get one. The fat grafting recovery was super easy too. So where they took the fat from on my thigh was pretty sore for a while, and like a bit bruised, but it wasn't like it wasn't really anything difficult to deal with. It was just if I touched it, if it would feel sore. The actual like locations where the fat was grafted didn't hurt, but they were pretty bruised, especially under my eyes. I had a lot of bruising for a while. The recovery for that's easy, really. The only thing you have to do is just not like put pressure on it and avoid alcohol for the first 3 months, and you're good. Now, I will say though, brow lift, at least the endoscopic brow lift like I had, was super painful. Like that by far was like the only like traumatizing, painful recovery I've ever really had for anything. It really hurt. Like they did warn me too, but it basically just felt like an awful headache, migraine feelings for a while. My eyes were really light sensitive too. I'm not sure if that was from the fat grafting or from the brow lift itself. I'm not too sure, but it was pretty rough. And like even after the initial pain subsided from it after the first couple of days, even like 6 months later, I would occasionally get these like random zinger sharp pains, like where the endotains were placed up here. I would just get like a random sharp pain out of nowhere. Like it would really hurt for like half a second. It was weird, but that went away too. I haven't had one of those in a couple months now, which is great. I was kind of scared it was gonna be permanent or something. Luckily, I didn't end up with any bald spots at all. I have a lot of trouble finding where my incisions even were. I really don't know exactly, but I'm lucky in that regard because from what I read online, some people really did suffer from that. They had like, temporarily hair shedding in those areas, or some of them even had like a permanent little scar. I have pretty thick hair, so maybe that's part of the reason I can't find my incisions, but they're there. Oh, the other annoying thing about recovery was I couldn't wash my hair or my face for like a week after surgery, I want to say, which sucks because you just feel like a nasty grease ball for a while. But the other thing that was a little rough was just having so much swelling around my eyes and like my eyebrow area after the surgery, because that swelling lasted a long time. It seriously lasted almost a month. I had some like swelling, like minimal one there, and a lot of bruising. So the bruising was pretty dark. It was like this dark purple gray color. It was really difficult to hide with makeup, so I just kind of looked weird with like 2 black eyes for a while. But that's just unfortunately what happens when you get plastic surgeries. You're gonna look a little weird before you look better. So about 3 months post-op, my eyebrows started looking a lot more normal. Initially they were super crazy high, and the clinic did tell me that, you know, that's just kind of how it's done. They overcorrect because they know your brows are gonna fall by like a couple millimeters at least into like a resting position finally. So they were super high at first, and then slowly came down over the first 3 months. And then I would say what I had at the 3-month mark is what I still have to this date, a year later. So I love where they ended up. I think they're the perfect height. They're not like crazy high and concerned looking, or too low like they were before. I absolutely love where they are. I think it's very youthful and cutesy having higher eyebrows, and that's exactly what I was going for. So the fat grafting, I would say, lasted pretty well. The thing about fat grafting is, you know, not all of your fat will survive. Maybe anywhere from like 10% up to like 50% will survive, so you do have to get it done multiple times. But it is permanent, it's your own fat, so it's better than filler in my opinion. I'm not really a fan of filler. So I would definitely say a good bit of the fat survived, but I still at this point would like to go back to Korea to get a little top up, just for a crumb more of it. And then my lip too, I really like it. I do think like maybe in a couple of years I would get another like 3 millimeters taken off, just because the 3 that I did have is really small. But I also didn't want to end up with like, you know, a lot of teeth showing if my lip got too short, or like a lot of issues closing my mouth. I'm sure the doctor had a good reason that he only recommended I get 3 millimeters off. Oh, the other good thing about having a brow lift, like an unexpected nice side effect, is I don't have any Botox on my forehead or anything. I like can't make my forehead wrinkle. I never really had like an easily wrinkly forehead before. Like if I raised my eyebrows, my forehead would never wrinkle. But like I'm like trying to lift it, and it's like barely doing anything. So when you get a brow lift, it kind of like makes this area a bit harder to move. So if you are concerned with forehead wrinkles, this could be a good procedure for you as well, because it kind of freezes it in place, so you won't develop them as much as someone else might. The other thing too is, so before my surgery, my forehead was a bit on the shorter side. When you get an endoscopic brow lift, it does make your forehead a little bigger. I asked the clinic this, they said no, it doesn't. It totally does. It does. Not a whole lot, but it does. I would say for me, my forehead ended up being, you know, maybe just a few millimeters bigger, which I'm totally okay with that. But if you feel like your forehead's too big already, I wouldn't get this, because it will get a little bigger. There's another type of brow lift, the traditional brow lift, where they like remove a piece of skin here and then sew it back together. Sounds kind of scary, but that's the traditional brow lift. That actually makes your forehead smaller and lifts your eyebrows at the same time. So depending on your forehead, you might want one or the other, but they both are permanent, which is great. They're not temporary like thread lifting or anything. So I'm okay with that. And the nice thing about getting an endoscopic brow lift is the recovery is a lot easier, and you don't have the scars. There's no scars. Like I don't have anything visible anywhere. But if you get the traditional brow lift, you're going to have like a scar along your hairline, which ideally your hair will hide, but it is something to keep in mind. But overall, I'm super happy with my surgeries. I really recommend these procedures if you have the same issues I have. It was totally worth it for me. The recovery, the trip, everything was honestly a really good time. I love going to Korea, so it's always like a treat to go anyways, but coming back looking a little better is always a nice little plus. So if you guys want, I highly recommend researching clinics, messaging them on Kakao Chat. You can also ask me questions in the comments, and I'm happy to answer them. But yeah, that was my experience, and overall I had a really positive one. Thanks so much for watching my video. Goodbye.